where the big changes are happening have to do with the computer chips in the hearing aids, and they're now using AI technology and sensors that help people when they're in background noise to better know who are you looking at, where is the noise, what is the noise. So the hearing aids are becoming a lot more automatic with how they're adjusting. It's all about the team that you have around you, honestly. Like, I couldn't do what I do if my team wasn't so great. Bringing Laura in was a big piece of that puzzle.
What's going on, everybody? Kyle Powers here, Haven Real Estate Group at eXp Realty, here with another episode of Local Legends of the Flint Hills, where business meets community. I've got some very special guests here with me with Advanced Audiology. I've got Katie Bunker and Laura Finazzo here. And ladies, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. So we just talked off camera. You said about May will be 10 years. So let's talk, bring us back to that, right? 10 years, 11 years ago, whenever the conception of this really was. Where did the founding mission, what is your mission here at Advanced Audiology?
Well, I graduated with my doctorate from KU in May of 2013, and I had taken over some satellite clinics and was traveling a little bit, but my main goal was to provide services in Manhattan. This is my hometown. It's also Laura's hometown as well. So basically from conception, I grew up in a family where my parents owned a business here in town, so business was always part of our daily lives, and my mom kind of was the helper to get things off the ground there, but she helped and my family helped make my dream a reality, and we opened here in our location. It will be 10 years this May. So that was kind of the start of things. It was just me and one or two other people in my staff for about 7 years, and then we brought Laura on in May of 2022, and we just continue to grow. Now we are 8 strong currently. We service 4 different clinic locations, with Manhattan being our main hub. We also go to Abilene, Concordia, and Beloit for services. Oh, wow. Nice. So we do outreach around the area here, both with we do work some with the VA and things like that too in some of our satellite clinics. So it's always just been about providing services. We see kids that are 2 weeks old up to 100-year-old patients. So it never gets boring around here because every day is different and every patient is very different as well. So we just, like I said, continue to grow and add services on, and just try to look for what the community needs and what we can do, to fill those voids where we can.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's been, I imagine because we have such a wide range of people. I mean, we just had that person that just walked in from, like you said, infants to military personnel that I'm sure with all the stuff that they go through, that they have a lot of needs and things with that. So that's fantastic. So I appreciate that. Is there anything you want to add? No?
Nope. That's all Katie's wheelhouse of how things got started. She's been doing this for so long, and it shows with the word of mouth of people who want to come and see her. And
yeah, Laura's been such an amazing addition to our office. The fact that she's also from Manhattan, she shares a lot of the same values with the community as well, and we just love this area, and we're glad that we can be here to provide services. So.
Talk to us a little bit about what you guys are able to provide here at Advanced Audiology. What types of services, what kind of patient care, and how you guys handle all that?
So we really are focused on treatment of hearing loss and the diagnostics that go along with that. So every person that walks into our office, they're always scheduled for a diagnostic hearing evaluation. Obviously, that looks different if it's a 2-week-old baby versus an adult or a teenager or a 100-year-old person. But we have a lot of equipment and special technology where we can test most ages. There are some specialty tests that are done on babies that we send to Children's Mercy and things like that. But most of the things we can start here, where we can at least get a good idea about what's going on with the hearing mechanism and where issues arise there. We really focus on best practices with our office. So as far as equipment goes, we think it's important that you are able to test all of the pieces of hearing. One thing that we've learned over the last few years is that the hearing test only gives us so much information. Functionally, there's a lot more that goes into it as well. And one of the reasons that we started kind of adding other things in, like auditory processing, we have some patients that come in and they're really struggling, and they've been told for years that their hearing is normal with the basic diagnostic test. And so now actually Dr. Finazzo has gone through some special training where she can do a formal auditory processing evaluation. We've also added a speech language pathologist onto our office where she can do special auditory training to help individuals that have difficulty with processing and noise. So we're always looking to expand our services. A lot of times the treatment for different hearing disorders can look different. A lot of times it may mean hearing aids or treatment in that way. And that is a big part of what we do. Again, any age from toddlers all the way up to 100 plus there as well. We have, like I said, a lot of special equipment that helps us to fit technology appropriately and really be able to create a personal plan for each patient and really customize things to the patient's needs. That's probably our biggest focus, is just the continued care for patients and how we try to do our best for them long term to find the best option for them. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah. I think too, our approach to patient care is it's very personalized. We definitely work on seeing every person that walks in the door as a whole person. And so, it's not just something where we're looking to fit a hearing aid on somebody. We want to look at them and say, okay, functionally, how are you doing? And really tailor our services based on how that person is doing and how they're perceiving difficulty. Adding in auditory processing, the kind of goal of that was to have the opportunity to be able to offer something to those who came in through the door and said, I'm having trouble, but my hearing test says everything is normal. We don't like to have people come in and not be able to have a solution for them. So adding in that extra service really was a way for us to be able to do that and have another option for those individuals who are struggling.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. You had mentioned kind of in kind of our talking beforehand about tinnitus. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it's a side effect of hearing loss very frequently. Honestly, it brings people into our office probably more frequently sometimes than I'm having trouble hearing. We always are two big proponents on baseline hearing evaluations. If you think about it, probably the last time you had a hearing test was when you were in high school. Once you get out of being school aged, unless your job requires your hearing to be within certain limits, it's something that people go most of their life without having a test. We both see people all the time that come in and they're like, well, things were normal a year ago and now we're having changes without a previous baseline. Sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out what's going on and where that change is happening. So really, we've kind of made it part of our mission too about awareness with primary care doctors and really promoting everyone getting good baseline hearing tests too, so that we can monitor, kind of identify maybe areas where there is some risk there with either noise, sometimes occupationally, military, you can't always control things like that, but a lot of it to prevention. Again, we had someone walk in about hearing protection in earlier, and that is a big part of it too, so identifying possible concerns where we can hopefully preserve things, maybe make changes as you're younger, so that as we age, then hearing isn't as much of a factor for them as well.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I'm curious. I just out of pure curiosity, what are those tests typically look like? Right, like you said, you've got machines and things and back there. Like, are you? Let me just stop there. What do those tests typically look like to get that baseline of what you're thinking there?
So everything kind of starts with, obviously, we've got to look in the ear, make sure there isn't wax or something else being an issue. Then we kind of work our way in and check the middle part of the ear. Allergies, there's been a lot of upper respiratory stuff. Sometimes it's middle ear congestion. So everything with the hearing and diagnostic testing starts with finding where people can hear. Most people think of it, raising your hand when you hear the beep and things like that. Obviously, that's something that we have to start with because we have to know what are you actually hearing. But we can also check things like speech understanding in quiet and in noise. Again, checking middle ear function. We have certain equipment for smaller kids where people are like, well, my 1-year-old, how are they going to respond? That's something called an OAE where we put something in the kid's ear, it plays little beeps, and then the ear actually produces a response back that we can measure. So that's kind of where things start. The hearing test is important. It tells us a lot of information. Is there something medically going on? Would that require further referral to ear, nose, and throat, where they can dive into the structures and the nerves further? Sometimes it does end in, okay, this is a sensory neural hearing loss with aging, pretty natural, and then the hearing aid process follows that after the testing is done. With that part two, that's where a lot of other equipment comes into play. Again, we're really big on best practices. The hearing test is actually what determines how loud sounds need to be and at each frequency. So it's really the foundation for any hearing aid fitting. But we have special equipment that we use for all of our fittings where it's called verification. Our equipment is called the VeriFit, where we can actually put microphones in people's ears, having them listen to a speech stimulus and actually customize the fitting specifically to that person's ear. The more customized we can make the fitting as far as the sound goes or the coupling to the ear, sometimes custom ear molds are important. Again, the more we can customize it to the patient, the more exact we can be, and then the better outcomes people have when they're in complex listening situations. So really, just as much as we can customize things, usually results in better outcomes with how people are doing functionally out in the real world. Anything to add?
Well, I think you've covered it pretty well. But the other thing I would add is that one thing that we really are big proponents on is that anybody who comes into our office who is interested in trying hearing aids gets a 30-day trial period. We are really big proponents of, if it is not working for you, we don't want you to keep it. We want to make sure that every patient who we work with is successful and is perceiving good benefit from any devices that they try. Through that trial period, we work through all the little kinks of, a hearing aid fitting. It's really something where, when you are wearing a hearing aid for the first time, your brain has not heard some of those sounds for a long time. The microphone. And so, it takes a little bit of time for the brain to adapt and to adjust to that. And so, really what that allows people to do is make sure that as they're going through that process of adaptation, that they're really getting that good benefit that we want them to see. Our goal is that every patient who wears hearing aids is perceiving good benefit, is, able to engage in the activities that they want to be, around their family and not feel like they have to work hard. There's something called listening effort, and that's something that, is just taking your brain a lot more work in order to understand speech or anything like that. And so we are here to help lessen that effort and really work to help people to hear the best that they can.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's been a lot of research in the last couple years too about, our sign over there that no one can see, it says hearing care is brain care. A lot of things too, with COVID and isolation and things, we saw a lot about how that isolation really impacts the brain with dementia, cognitive function. Hearing loss also causes people to isolate themselves a lot. Sometimes people don't even notice that they're isolating. They're like, I don't want to go back to that situation, or I don't want to go be part of that group either. So really our job, it's communication. Again, keeping people connected to the people that are important, their friends, their family, and that can look different for every patient. I always tell people, one of the reasons I love my job is I'm starting fresh with every person that walks in, and I never know how it's going to go, and it's definitely not a cookie cutter type of thing. One size fits all is not what we do here at all. Again, we just really try and tailor things specifically to the patient, and everyone's needs are different, everyone's lifestyle is different, and, again, long-term processes, we want everyone to stay connected.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I mean, that makes the isolation piece, that makes sense, because you sitting in a room full of people and you can't hear anything, then it's like, well, I'm kind of over here on my own. Dr. Finazzo had somebody come in, so she had to step out for us to take care of that, because work doesn't stop here, right? But no, so Katie, I want to talk to you a little bit about the advancements in technology in hearing aids and everything else that you guys have been able to do, or the industry as a whole has had over the last couple of years. Yeah. How do you guys stay on top of that, and then where do you guys see yourselves with that?
So one of the biggest changes that's happened in the last couple of years, honestly, is now there are over-the-counter types of devices, and kind of differentiating ourselves from what that looks like. Again, we really are not a one-size-fits-all type of practice. It's all about, again, customizing things, whether it's the style of hearing aid, custom ways they fit in your ear. Anymore, hearing aid technology, too, is changing pretty rapidly. It's almost about every 18 months anymore that new technology is coming out. A lot of times, when people are looking at features, they're looking at, is it rechargeable? Is it Bluetooth compatible? Those things are all nice for ease and connectivity and compatibility, but where the big changes are happening have to do with the computer chips in the hearing aids and how they're able to adjust. They're now using AI technology and sensors that help people when they're in background noise to better know, who are you looking at? Where is the noise? What is the noise? So the hearing aids are becoming a lot more automatic with how they're adjusting. So a lot of times too, the kind of outward features are what kind of get people interested of, I don't have to change batteries. I can just use a charger. But then once people try them and get that 30-day experience, even people who've worn hearing aids a long time, they can see those advancements firsthand. And that's why we really like the trial period. All of our patients like it too, because if their technology is 5 years old, they don't know what it could look like with the new technology unless they try it. So it's nice to be able to work with hearing aid manufacturers that really are at the top of their game too with research and development. So we know when we're putting things on people, it's something we can stand behind there as well. But a lot of times things kind of speak for themselves. If the technology is good and we know we're doing best practices at how we're fitting it to make sure we're crossing all of our T's and dotting our I's with that. Again, we never really want to guess what's happening in a hearing aid, and previously that unfortunately was a lot of what was happening. It's like, okay, the hearing aid, the computer says it's programmed this way. Well, when we now can actually have tests that we can run to make sure, in fact, it's doing what we want it to do, again, the outcomes are usually better in those complex environments. Some of the technology is hearing aid related, but prevention and baseline hearing tests, that's where everything starts. So usually the first thing we always recommend is get your hearing tested. We can't stress that enough, that just knowing where you're at, it can help us kind of set up kind of some goals and things for the future and kind of figure out what that person needs long term. Some of that with prevention does come down to custom hearing protection and things like that. That is an area where things have changed a lot from just the over-the-ear muffs and the little foam earpieces to now we can fully customize hearing protection where it fits exactly to your ear, usually more comfortable, and it does a better job of blocking sound, to also digital hearing protection. That you can use when you're hunting and shooting and things like that. So things are continuing to evolve with technology, which is good. There's always little niches as far as, the hunting community, military. Again, military is always an area where, they are exposed to more noise, just occupationally. So how can we be proactive with reducing that risk long term? With, again, just different options for everyone. I think the more options that we have, the more we can fine-tune things to what people need, and people just don't anymore fit in box 1 or box 2. We've got a lot of different options now.
Yeah. Well, and then too many options too. I think a lot of people will get overwhelmed by it too. Yeah. So, the fact that that you understand it and can do that, I think that's why you're here, right? To be able to educate. I'm out of pure curiosity. So I know that with the new hearing aids and stuff, can you translate different languages and things like that, real time?
You can through the app. Basically, it's using Google Translate. If the hearing aids are connected Bluetooth wirelessly to your phone, then that can actually translate through the hearing aid to you real time with Google Translate. So it's actually technology that is connected through the app and through the phone.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I am one of those people, right, that I don't know the last time I actually had an ear or a hearing test was probably high school, you said, probably part of the physical or whatever that was. But so anybody watching that's similar to me or similar to in that sense of how do we have that preventative, right? If I want to be 70 years old and not have to worry about ear protection, or not protection, but hearing aids.
Yeah.
What can I do today to make sure that I'm taking the right care to help on that?
Good question. So usually the 3 big factors that contribute to hearing loss are aging, genetics, and noise exposure. Yet we have not been able to figure out how to stop aging and genetics at this point. So again, noise exposure is usually the biggest culprit. Unfortunately, a lot of times people don't realize how much noise can affect their hearing until they have an incident happen. Right. Where I've had people that are like, I've been hunting for 10 years and I've never worn hearing protection and this didn't happen. And then that one time the conditions were just right. Someone next to them shoots a shotgun and then all of a sudden now they've had a permanent shift in hearing. So prevention always starts with minimizing your risk of noise. But also, I really encourage our patients to really stay on top of their overall health and their annual physicals. Things like hypertension and diabetes can also really cause hearing loss to change more aggressively.
Okay.
Also, sometimes, unfortunately, certain illnesses, autoimmune things like that can also cause some changes there as well. So maintaining your overall health is really important. Things like hydration, again, eating a balanced diet, all of those things can really just reduce your risk of those other disease processes happening and, again, contributing to your hearing loss over time as well.
I didn't realize that diabetes would affect that. I guess your whole body is connected, so I guess that makes sense. But so I guess then more in depth, outside of doing the molded ear protection, things like that, because for me, I shoot guns, but I don't necessarily shoot every day, so I probably wouldn't splurge for a molded one, right?
Yeah.
So versus the the digital ones, like you talked about digital hearing protection, are those better than what you would say like the earmuffs typically would be, or what would be?
Yeah, usually the most cost-effective thing probably right now, honestly, you can get pretty inexpensive over-the-ear muffs that they can be digital where they can still amplify some sound around you but are going to adjust for impact sounds. Usually, too, over-the-ear muffs are pretty easy to get on and off with less user error. Sometimes if people don't get things just in their ear just right, noise-canceling headphones, that's always a point of contention with my husband where he's mowing for a few hours, and it used to be where he was listening to music or a podcast or something over the mower. But with the noise canceling, it can help keep that residual noise down. And then again, the exposure is reduced there. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but things like iPhones do track how much noise you're getting exposed to. I don't know if you've ever gotten an alert on your phone. If you haven't, that's probably a good sign. But usually there's a relationship between how loud something is and the amount of exposure. So setting a firecracker off here could cause instantaneous damage, but a sound like a blender or a vacuum cleaner over the course of an 8-hour day can cause as much damage that way over time as well. So monitoring your exposure, that's why OSHA usually requires people that are around noise to take more frequent breaks too, because then you're dividing up that exposure and it's just not that length of time. So usually my rule of thumb is if it's louder than a blender or a vacuum cleaner, wear hearing protection. Sometimes it's not even the mower, but you go over a rock and there's a sudden impact sound there. Again, the over-the-ear muffs can be pretty inexpensive anymore. Again, easy to get on and off. Doesn't always have to be customized there, just really anything that you can do. My husband gives me a hard time that when I go to basketball games, I wear my custom earplugs. I've been to many K-State KU games and my ears are ringing after, or I'm standing there with my ears. He's like, "You're embarrassing me." So I have small little ones. No one can ever tell I'm wearing them. But yeah, I'm very proactive, as are my children, just by nature of my occupation. So.
That's awesome. I can imagine he's probably like, "Come on, are you serious with that?"
Yeah.
At least you don't have the
They're
over
discreet. They're very discreet.
Yeah, at least you don't have the
really
big
tell.
earmuffs inside,
Yeah,
right? That's awesome. Working on 10 years now, you've grown up in this community. What have you guys been able to do to bring hearing awareness, hearing loss awareness to our community, and then how do you continue to support our community in that sense?
We've been focusing a lot on education, and we do a lot of that through primary care. You know, primary care, they're the foundation of your healthcare in the community. So we've been doing a lot of education over the years of changes in technology, just keeping primary care doctors up to date, and really being proponents too of establishing baseline hearing tests. That was kind of our big thing when we first started here in town. We do a lot of outreach, not only with our satellite clinics, but we go to the senior center once a month and help people keep their hearing aids clean. Again, just accessibility. A lot of times, a lot of our patients can't always travel or get out all the time. So if we can be places where they are, we also just help in the community with different activities. With Everybody Counts, we've done hearing screenings there. That is all ages of screenings. It's kind of that first step. Again, to kind of identifying potential areas of concern and making sure we get proper referrals there. When I first started, I did a lot of work with the school district on kind of helping them establish a good protocol too with preschools, and you know, kids are more likely to get ear infections and things like that. So I've established a good network of speech language pathologists in town that work at the school level there too, and we get a lot of phone calls sometimes from doctors' offices and other providers kind of asking questions, and we always try and help people educate them really on, again, prevention. What can you do? A lot of times too, I have a lot of people, our first appointment usually is set up for 90 minutes, and we really dive into things quite a bit. And a lot of that is just going through history of things, of when did things happen and changes. And I've had several times where, there's more, again, than the hearing test tells you. And so that's also our opportunity to get to know people pretty well, too, to kind of, again, figure out what their needs are, what drives them, so we can tailor the best treatment plan.
Yeah. No, and I think it always comes back to the education piece, right? I mean, excuse me, having that baseline. I mean, again, I never would have. It makes sense. I mean, I go in and have my blood taken every year, but why not check your ears too?
Right.
So my wife probably thinks I'm deaf, but I've got a couple questions here about the future and what you guys have on, what your plan is for moving forward. And then one more question that I always love to ask before we kind of wrap everything up here. But before we get to that point is, if anybody watching this, let's say they're just curious, right? They want to come in, have a consultation, talk to you, so whatever that may be. How do they get a hold of you? How do they set an appointment? What's the best practices for you guys there?
Usually the best thing, honestly, we do have a website, but a lot of times it's better to just call. We're also one of the offices that you will always talk to a human person when you call. Hearing loss and telephone calls can be tricky sometimes. But Sarah, who is always our first point of contact on the phone, she asks a lot of really good questions too, to make sure that we're getting you to the right place. So, sometimes people seek us out through the website, and then they have questions about what we can do. A lot of times just that initial intake over the phone is really important, because again, if someone's having a medical concern, we can make sure that they get to ear, nose, and throat if it is a medical thing or something they need to see primary care with. And a lot of times, again, it's all about educating. So she spends a lot of time on the phone too, educating people. And again, we want to make sure you get where you need to be, and then that you're not waiting and then it's something else that we can't handle here, or that you need a medical evaluation for deeper than what we're doing. So usually calling is probably the best way. That way you can get to talk to a real person and get your questions answered. So then again, we know best where to start with the process.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Or walk in, apparently, because there's a lot of walk-ins here.
We do. Apparently our door never closes ever, but we do get a lot of walk-ins, which is good. We have people a lot, honestly, that come in town for K-State events and things, and their hearing aid broke or something's going on. So we get that quite a bit too. The nice thing is, again, we can kind of, again, keep things open and help anybody that needs us. So
yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so the future. So you guys, 10 years, I know we've talked about that a lot, 10 years. What does the next 10, 20, 30 years look like for you guys here?
Oh, that's a great question. My husband always asks, what would you do if you won the lottery? I was like, I'd build this state-of-the-art office and clinic, and I'm going through all the equipment that I could buy and things. I think our biggest thing is just continuing to expand our services, really adding auditory processing on, and adding Dr. Finazzo on a couple years ago has been really big for us. Also, too, finding the right people to be part of our team. We do things just a little different than some offices. So I really think that, in 10 years, I would like there to be like 3 or 4 other providers too. Unfortunately, kind of as our field continues to adapt, like at KU, my class was 10. So it's a pretty small pool to pull from. But that's probably one of our biggest challenges moving forward. finding the right people with the right education. And again, we've kind of nurtured our staff kind of from the ground up too, where I have someone who started out as a student I was mentoring at K-State, and then she thought she was going to go to audiology school, but then she changed her mind. So she's been working in our office, and she was my assistant, and now she's in the process of getting licensure to become a hearing instrument specialist too. So kind of nurturing all levels. We work with K-State a lot with students and their program with communications and sciences and disorders there. But it is a challenge because there's not a lot of audiologists out there. There's a lot of people that work with hearing aids in different ways, and sometimes, again, like you said earlier, there's just a lot of different things out there, and it gets really confusing. Transparency and about what we're able to provide and do, we are really big on that with patients as well. So I just hope we continue to grow and find the right people, to fill the needs for the community. And I always feel like there's more that we can do, and sometimes it's just finding the right people to help.
Yeah.
So.
No, and I think you said it, right? Like, grow for the necessity of the community.
Yeah.
Instead of, I see so many times where people are growing to grow. They're not necessarily growing because there's a need for it. And I think that's a big piece to it too. So, okay. So my favorite question to always ask, for business owners in general, I've gotten them from very beginning, very starting out to been in the business for 30 years. Mm-hmm. What advice would you like to give, or would you give to anybody looking for to start a business, to start in audiology, whatever that may be? What advice would you give to the entrepreneurship world?
Perfect. I would say the most important thing, honestly, is building your team. My passion is audiology and my patients and hearing, but I have a great team around me that can help me with all of the business side of things as well. It's all started with my mom, who was an accountant, or is an accountant, and kind of getting that part, the business side. You probably know there's a lot more to the business side. I'm lucky my husband has a business degree as well. So I have a lot of really great people. My office manager, Kyla Piper, she does a lot of the heavy lifting from a day-to-day standpoint to keep things running, so I can see as many patients and continue to help people out. But it's all about the team that you have around you, honestly. Like, I couldn't do what I do if my team wasn't so great. Bringing Laura in was a big piece of that puzzle, because I'm only one person and I only have so many hours in the day. So the biggest challenge is just recreating myself and being more efficient with my team around me, so I can do the things that only I can do, and finding the right people to help with everything else. Yeah, so
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Creating the team. I love that. I love that. So I guess before we kind of wrap it up, is there anything else you'd like to add to the video?
I don't think so. I just appreciate the opportunity to kind of share my passion. Again, I couldn't believe it's been 10 years since I started here in town. And again, hopefully things continue to grow. And again, we continue to find these niches in the community and how we can continue to help in that way.
Love it. I love it. So, well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. And you guys, for you watching, I appreciate you watching to this point. It's been a really fun understanding of where this is. And I think probably my biggest takeaway from all of this is just getting that baseline, right? Yeah. I think that's the big thing that I really thinking I need to do too. Yeah. Just kind of having that baseline of what that is. Yeah, right. I'm gonna need to, apparently. Okay. But that's the important part, right? And I think in anything with health related, right? And that's the ears is part of the health relation piece of it, but having that true baseline of where you're at, where you're going to, either getting better or worse, and all that stuff is going to be probably the most important piece. So, but thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already and you do enjoy this content, please go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell so you get notified of any future content. And please, 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 if you know somebody who is needing something like this. Maybe it's a grandfather or grandma, whatever it looks like, or maybe it's your spouse that needs a hearing aid. That's probably my wife's going to share this video with me. But no, seriously, so share this video with them. Have them come in and take a look at Advanced Audiology. Schedule your appointment with Katie and her team, and just kind of see what it's about, right? Get that baseline, figure out where your needs are. It sounds like they can get you taken care of on any stage of that, right? Whether it's the just the fact-finding information, or whether it is fitting you for hearing aids or ear protection or whatever that may be, and just kind of come in and say hi to these ladies and see what they're all about, because I promise you, you won't be disappointed. We've had, if you watched the video to this point, you notice we've changed locations, because it's been a lot of people coming in, which is a fantastic thing, because they're taking that next step. So share this video with them, get them in here, take a look, come on in and say hi to these ladies, and just kind of start your process with getting your hearing fixed up and getting taken care of. So thank you guys so much for watching. Reach out to these ladies, and if not, go ahead and put a comment in the below. I'd love to hear from you guys on that one. But thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next week. Talk to you later.